Winter, spring, summer, and fall, my pretty red farmall, I do it all. Hi, Jim Farmall again, and welcome back to our Treasure channel.
I'm James, and today we're going to talk about how we pick a tractor when we're looking to buy it. This is our 1961 D17 Series 2 Diesel. This is my dad, and he's going to kind of go over some of the things that we look for. First thing that we look at is number one, pull the radiator cap. Of course, I always look into the radiator, see if there's any oil residue in it. Of course, there's no oil residue in the radiator. So then run your finger around the rubber ring on the radiator cap and see if there's any oil residue on it. If there's no oil residue in your radiator, then next step they go and pull the dipstick, which is around on this side of the tractor. You see that? No, it's on the side. Of course, oil in this tractor needs to be changed. It hadn't been changed this year. But you pull your oil stick out, your dipstick out, and look for any milky content. If it looks like a vanilla milkshake when you pull it out, you don't want it. Just a little bit of black oil is not too bad. Like I said, the engine oil in this thing needs changing. Next thing we look for is fuel leaks, which this tractor here has got a few fuel leaks on it. It's got to be taken care of. We're going to have that pump rebuilt. And then you need to look for hydraulic oil leaks. This tractor here has got a leak or two on it, nothing major. We look to see if the tractor's got good bones, we call it. In other words, you know, as long as the sheet metal is halfway straight on it, no water in the oil, no oil in the water, no serious fuel leaks, and you know it's got, we count it as having pretty good bones. You want to start the tractor and as you can see, the tractor smoked a little black smoke running. That's fuel smoke. We're not too concerned with fuel smoke. If there's white smoke or blue smoke, white smoke is a sign that there's water's getting into the cylinders. So that could be a blown head gasket. It could be a cracked head. It could even be a cracked block. Blue smoke is a sign of wear on the rings, and you know that would either one would entail disassembling the engine to rebuild it. Another thing you want to look at is your free travel on the clutch. And when I say free travel, that means how far does the clutch go in before it hits to disengage it. If the free travel on this clutch really needs to be adjusted, if it's within about an inch, then your clutch is not in too bad shape, but you do need to get on the tractor and drive it and see where the clutch releases. And never buy a tractor without operating it and getting it up to operating temperature, because if there's any bugs in it, that's when it's going to show up. It's not going to show up when the tractor's sitting here idling at a cold idle. The oil is thick. It's not going to seep out seals. When you get it up to operating temperature, you're going to find the issues that are wrong with that piece of machinery. And of course, you want to check your gears to make sure your gears are fairly tight. The gears on this tractor are really tight. The next thing you want to check is your linkage on the steering. Of course, you can buy tie rod ends and you can fix all of this stuff. But the main thing to keep in mind is you're taking a chance on buying a machine that's going to break the bank if you go out and you pull one out of the woods and you try to put it back new. I mean, you can do that if you're not intending to resell, or if you're going to use it and you intend on keeping it until you get your money's worth out of it, then you know, sometimes it pans out to you know, to pull one out of the bushes and get it back running. But 9 times out of 10, you know, you're going to wind up spending a lot more than the machine is worth if you don't buy one that's already up in operating condition. We've seen that time and time again in the shop. People bring stuff to us. We had a 960 Ford tractor that was brought to us last year, and the gentleman, he bought it, and it was just supposedly needed a tune-up and a set of brakes on it. And $5,000 later, we rebuilt the engine, put a clutch in it, and basically rebuilt the rear end on it. So you have to be careful when you buy something, and really and truly don't take somebody's word on it. Get on the machine, operate it, get it up to operating temperature, check it out for yourself. Make sure that everything operates the way that it needs to. Do the research, know what the machine's supposed to do before you buy it. And each tractor is different. I mean, the Allis Chalmers has got certain parts that are supposed to do a certain thing. John Deere has got its own hydraulic system. Ford has got a totally separate type hydraulic system, and International's got a different system to that. So you need to do the research on the machine and know what each part is supposed to do, how it works in series together. Like John Deere, the one thing that I would look for on John Deere is John Deere has got a transmission pump, which is inside the front of the transmission housing, behind the bell housing. If that transmission pump's bad, then it contaminates the whole hydraulic system, and then you have to disassemble the whole tractor to be able to clean the hydraulic system, to get the metal shavings and the debris out of it. If you don't, and you just put a transmission pump in and you don't go through the rest of the system, then it recontaminates the system. So that's one thing to look for with John Deere. With Ford, you know, the main thing to worry about with a Ford is the clutch war, because a lot of the older Fords had the 2-stage clutch, which what that means is you mash the clutch in part of the way and it stops the tractor, and then you mash the clutch in all the way and it stops the tractor in the PTO. And if the clutch is wore and you mash it all the way in, then a lot of times the PTO won't stop. And there's not a really good way to adjust that clutch to get the PTO working properly. So it all needs to be, you need to try to buy one that the clutch is not out of. If you do, you're going to wind up having to split the tractor and roll it apart and then put a new clutch in, which, you know, if you got the tools, it's not that bad, but if you don't have the tools, you're going to have to pay somebody to do it. And that you need to take that into account. And that can range anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 to have a clutch put in one. And an engine job, you know, depending on the engine, it can range anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 to have an engine reworked.
And like on some of these Allis Chalmers diesel, it's getting harder and harder to find parts. Like on these Buddha diesels, there's some parts you can't even get.
And, you know, depending on where you get your parts, who does the labor, and the machine shop, like I said, it can range anywhere. It can range anywhere from, some of these diesel engines, it costs as much as $8,000–9,000 to rebuild them. So those are some of the things you need to keep in mind. It's always best if you can find one that's running and in decent shape. It's got good bones and you can do a little to it, a little patchwork here and there, and get it running, than it is to, you know, just to buy one straight out of the woods. Unless you're mechanically inclined and you can do most of the work yourself, it's better to, you know, just to buy one that's already running. Another thing to look at is brakes. Now, Allis Chalmers brakes are different than all others. You have to completely disassemble. You have to take the wheel off. You have to take the whole axle housing off to get into the brakes. And then the brake shoes are inside in here, and it's a pretty good little job to replace those brakes. Some of the older Farmalls are the same way, like the Super A's, the Cubs. I think in the C's and the H's and the M's, the brakes are on the side. But those are things that are you need to take into account. Are the brakes easy access? Now, on a Ford tractor, you have to remove the wheel, and then the brake drum is right here, and you take the brake drum off, and then there's springs and adjusters in here. So it's not such a big job. So, you know, a brake job on a Ford is going to cost you somewhere, say, in the neighborhood of around $600 to $800, labor parts and all. Whereas, you know, the brakes on like an older Farmall or an Allis Chalmers is going to cost you a lot more. A tractor like this, brake, you know, to fix the brakes on it's going to run you somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 because it's so labor intensive. Another thing to look at is the seals in the rear end, the seals on the PTO. Do they leak? You need to take that into account. Some of the PTO seals are not hard to change. This tractor here, there's 3 bolts that holds the seal in. You take the bolts out, you pull the seal cover out and replace the seal and put it back in. The axle seals are a little bit different. Now, some of the older model Fords, like the 2N, the 8N, the axle seals on those, you have to pull the trumpet housings off. You have to get into the seals. You have to completely disassemble the whole axle housing to get into the seals, and that's labor intensive. So it's a pretty good little job to get the seals in. So you're looking, you know, at a lot of money if you have to go that route. Let's go around on the other side over here. And, you know, another thing to look at is power steering. If the tractor's got power steering, you know, you always want to check hoses, lines, everything to make sure that all of that stuff is, you know, in decent shape, because that's one thing that this nowadays is beginning to run pretty expensive is hydraulic lines. And especially these metal lines like these right here, it's getting harder and harder to find people to make these type lines up. And they're costly when you do have to have them made up. So you want to make sure that, you know, that these lines aren't rusted nearly through, that they don't have cracks in them. And another thing to look at is the machine on 12 volt or is it on a 6 volt system? It costs a little bit to convert it over to a 12 volt, but the 12 volt most of the time is better. It cranks a lot easier. And brakes, like I said earlier, you always want to check the brakes to make sure you got the pedals are good. The main thing is that I would tell anybody that's going to look at it, that is looking at buying a tractor, is get online. It's too easy not to get online nowadays and research a machine and know how it's supposed to operate, rather than just going in blindly and buying something. Because like I said earlier, we've had, over the last year, we've had a lot of people to bring stuff to us that, you know, they bought it, and once you buy it and, you know, you start working on it and you start realizing that, hey, this is costing too much money. Well, once you've done throwed $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000 at a machine, you're kind of committed. You can't back out of it. So you need to know what you're getting into before you buy the machine. You need to do the research. And you know, if you're not mechanically inclined, find a mechanic. Take a mechanic with you. Let them look at it. Let them give it a going over. Let them determine whether or not the machine is worth. We've got several customers that we do that type of thing for them. If they're looking at a machine, I'll go with them to look and try to make sure that, you know, that what they're buying is worth the money. It's just not it's not good business. It's not money wise to buy something without knowing what you're getting into. It's too easy now to get the material, the information that you need. I mean, this tractor here, you can get online. You can get on YouTube. You can get on Google. All you got to do is look this tractor up, and you can find out about how the power director is supposed to work, how the hydraulics work. Any type of tractor that you're interested in, you can find. There's too much information out there not to do the research. Jim, what's this lever?
Power director.
That's right, that's the power director. This is a high and low range on this tractor. Ford, John Deere, International, all the other tractors had a short lever here. Massey Ferguson, they all got it for the high and low range. Allis Chalmers, a traction booster, that's your high range. That's neutral, and that's your low range. All right. This power director works off clutch packs. All right. Ford's version of this is what's called the dual power, and there's a button or a pedal that you mash. You mash it down for low and trip it up for high. All right. Those are things that you really need to look at when you're buying a tractor, is to make sure those type things work. We've got an 8,000 Ford tractor in the shop right now that the dual power's out of, which means we're going to have to separate the tractor here, and then back here where it joins the transmission, we're going to have to separate that to get into that clutch pack, which is a major job, and major jobs cost major money. So that's something you need to keep in mind. John Deere, they've got the quad range transmission, and then they've also got a power reverser, and those are clutch packs. So you need to get that tractor up to operating temperature to be able to check and make sure that those clutch packs are working. If they're slipping, keep in mind, major overhaul, major money, because you have to completely disassemble everything, and the hydraulic system has to be flushed, has to be cleaned after all of this major overhaul has to be done, because if you don't get the debris out of the hydraulic system, you wind up with the same problem again, or damage to your hydraulic pump. So those are things that really that we look for when we're going to buy a tractor. The sheet metal, you know, I like to buy them with decent sheet metal, but you can't always do that. But you can replace the sheet metal. I mean, cosmetics doesn't concern me just a whole awful lot. I mean, I can do the work and straighten the sheet metal up, or I can buy sheet metal panels and replace them. But when you start getting into the mechanics of it, that's where the money comes in. That's where it costs. And if you're not able to do your own mechanic work, you run into a lot of money. Now, I think we did a video on our 350 Farmall. It needed some sheet metal work done on it. We did the sheet metal work. The tractor had good bones. That's what we call it, is bones. The tractor had good bones. It needs one tire on it right now, but the sheet metal's good. The mechanics of it's good. The one tire we can put on it, and we're going to use that tractor this spring. So, James, you want to talk about this tractor a little bit?
This tractor, like I said earlier, is a 1961 Series 2 diesel. Allis Chalmers, of course, this is where you check the hydraulic oil in it. And of course, then they've already gone over the power director, like they said. That's your high, neutral, and low. And this is where you check the transmission fluid in it. As you can see, it's full. This is up to the full mark. Then this lever right here, it trips the snap coupler down there. Come around here at the back of the tractor, and I'll show you how it works. A lot of times, Allis Chalmers equipment had a bar that run up, and it had a tongue, what basically looks like a tongue, kind of shaped like that. It slips up into the snap coupler, and then these cuffs right here, this is what they look like. They have arms and have two pins off either side that slip up into the coupler. Then that cuff just clamps down over it. And of course, then this is the lift arms that lift your equipment up and down. We have a snap coupler 3-bottom turning plow and a snap coupler 8-foot disc. Now we'll go over this side of the tractor over here. Allis Chalmers, when they built their tractors, like the D series and the Land Handler series, they were hunkered down in the back like that, which helped with traction, and they were long, which give you weight out here to the front. I like Allis Chalmers tractors because they were well built. My great-granddad had a 1959 D12 Series 1, and I just always liked Allis Chalmers. When I heard my dad tell me about my great-granddad's equipment, and about the snap coupler system, when I done my research when we was looking for this tractor, the more research I done on it, the more I liked it. This tractor has the dual fuel filter system on it, which is not too bad to bleed on this tractor. They can be a little aggravating at times, but just all around, this tractor has a 6-cylinder diesel on it, like I said earlier. The Buddha diesels, from the research I've done on them, they are pretty good diesels. They're a little cold-natured. A lot of times these D17s, if you hear a lot of people talk about them, they're kind of hard to start in the winter. This one's not too bad. We don't have to use ether. You might have to heat it and you might not, depending on the temperature. I did a cold start video on this tractor not too long ago, and it wasn't too bad at all to start. I didn't even have to heat it. Earlier I had to heat it. It just really depends on the weather conditions to get it to start. And of course these little fuel leaks we have on the pump don't help it either. And
I know my brother likes Allis Chalmers tractors, but as I say around here, if it ain't farmer red, keep that saying in the set. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe.